Welcome back to my channel. My name is Erica. I'm the author of the blog, The Simple Home Place, and today I want to share with you how to make wool dryer balls from wool yarn. So first, let's talk about what wool dryer balls are. And if you're on this video, you probably know what they are, maybe even use them and want to learn how to make them. So essentially, it's just wool that has been wrapped into a ball and felted. And what felting is the dryer ball will go through a process of heating it up, usually in hot water, and then drying it. And what that does is it basically makes all of the yarn stick together, it gets really fuzzy, and then everything is into one cohesive ball that you can then use in your dryer. So why might you want to use dryer balls? Basically what they do, especially when you use, 3, 4, up to 6 in your dryer, is it creates space between your clothes as they tumble through the dryer. And so that increases air circulation around all of the clothing or items that are in the dryer. It helps them to dry faster, and it reduces wrinkles and static. So dryer balls are really supposed to be used in place of dryer sheets. And there's lots of information out there as to why you might not want to use dryer sheets. I know for me, the reason was that I wanted to reduce the amount of fragrance that I was using in my home. So that's my reason, but you might have a different reason. I really do like the dryer balls because you can add scent, so you can use essential oils if you want to add a fragrance. You can just leave them as they are and use them for the benefits of reducing wrinkles and reducing dry time. So let's go ahead and get into the tutorial. To start off with, the only material that you need is 100% wool yarn. I'm using the Fisherman's Wool from Lion brand in the colors Natural, which is the white color, and Birch Tweed, which is the other color. Now you want to make sure that you're using 100% wool yarn that has not been treated in any way. So some terms to look out for would be superwash, and that is the type of yarn that you want to avoid. It needs to be untreated, natural, 100% wool yarn. So what we're doing is I just tied a couple knots at the end of the yarn, and you just start wrapping the yarn around itself. And what I will say, the hardest part of this whole process is the very beginning, because it tends to kind of slide off and things like that. So I would recommend kind of wrapping the yarn several times around itself and then rotating it and doing it again, and you just continue that process. Now, one thing I want to emphasize is you do want to make sure that you're rotating that ball as you go, and I have a slower clip here just to show you what that looks like. So I went a couple of times around itself and then just a slight turn, and then you keep going, and that's going to help you get a really nice round sphere, ball, whatever you want to call it. And we're just going to continue wrapping until we've reached a ball that I would say it's in between a baseball and a softball size. I did end up weighing mine just to make sure that there was some consistency for this tutorial. Normally I wouldn't. I would just go by eyeball and comparing. You make one and then you compare the rest to that one. But if you want to be kind of particular, the balls weighed around 2.3 ounces or so. And now these will shrink when we go through the felting process, so just be aware of that. Make them just a little bit bigger than maybe you would want them, but I found this size to be a perfect size. So now to finish the ball off, I am just putting a yarn needle on the end of the yarn and pushing that through. You're not going to be able to do it all the way through the center of the ball, but just kind of on the side, making sure you're really getting that end of the yarn secure. And once you've done that 2 or 3 times, all you need to do is cut it off and you're ready to move on to the next step. Next up, we're going to prepare the dryer balls to be felted. And to do that, we're going to need some stockings, some nylons, whatever you've got on hand, or you can just go buy something cheap. And the point of this is to keep the balls nice and secure and to not allow them to unwind while we're boiling them and throwing them in the dryer. You want to keep them nice and intact. So I just cut the leg off of these stockings and I'm adding a ball to the toe. Now these are kids stockings, so you could probably fit more into an adult size stocking, so just keep that in mind. But I'm pushing that ball all the way to the end and then tying a knot. and it's pretty simple. We're just going to continue that until all of the dryer balls are in the stocking and secure. Now I do want to say I had 2 skeins of that wool yarn, and I was able to get a total of 6 dryer balls. Now I did use the last bit of the white color as the core for one, and then I finished it off with more of that tweed so that I could have 3 of each color. But just keep that in mind if you do use a specific type of yarn. I was able to get 6 with just a little bit of yarn left over, which is always a plus. So now that we've got everything secure, we are going to take these over to the stove and boil them. So I've got a big pot of boiling water, and like I said, we're going to boil these wool dryer balls, which seems really strange, but this is going to help in the felting process. Now, if you don't want to boil them, you can do this in your washer. Just, wash them on really high heat. Don't use any detergent or anything, but let them go ahead and go through a cycle and then pop them in the dryer. But I didn't want to do that, and I felt like my water doesn't get hot enough. So we're just going to go ahead and boil them for about 20 to 30 minutes. Make sure that everything is submerged. And real quick note, wool yarn smells like sheep. There's really no sugarcoating it. It does have a smell, and that is because there is lanolin in the wool, and that is just a wax that sheep secrete. So just keep that in mind. 100% wool yarn does have a scent. Now I will say that as you use your dryer balls, that scent does fade, thankfully. But the first couple of tumbles in your dryer, there's going to be a little bit of a scent. It's not terrible, but just keep that in mind as you're boiling them and drying them. You're going to smell it. Now I let the water cool down and then drained it and squeezed out as much of the water out of the dryer balls as I could, and then I tossed them in the dryer with some towels, and I dried them on high 3 or 4 different times, about an hour each. It does take a little while for them to get fully dry, but once they are, then you can go ahead and cut them out of the stockings, and you can see that even though you can see all of the winds of the yarn, they are completely felted, they are put together, and the strings, the yarn is not going to be unwound. And so that's what you're looking for. Again, depending on what you do, you might have to repeat the boiling process and the drying process, but the goal is to make sure that the yarn is not going to come off or anything like that. So these dryer balls are ready for use. You can use essential oils on them if you want to give your laundry a nice scent. I recommend using probably 4 to 6 of these for a large load, and they're going to help to reduce the dry time, reduce static, and soften your clothes. So as you can see, making your own dryer balls is a super easy process. It only requires a few things. I will have everything linked down below if you want to go ahead and check out the materials. I'll also have a link to the printable instructions, so if you want to go ahead and print those off so that you can have that to go along with the video, sometimes that helps. But yeah, thank you so much for being here. If you like videos like this, I would really appreciate it if you would hit that subscribe button. But yeah, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and thanks again. Take care.